who's joined the Teaspoon Commission, and I'm going to ask him to lead us as a welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much and welcome. Okay, we'll move now to roll call. Ms. Brewer?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Commissioner Martos?
Here.
Commissioner Ng?
Here.
Commissioner Lee?
I see she is in the attendee list. I don't know if
let me-
we're able to promote her.
Thank you, Scott. Okay,
course.
perfect. Thank you, Mandy. Commissioner Lee?
Here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Rebelos?
Here.
Chair Israelit?
Here. Great. Commissioner Lee, you got in just in time. I'm glad.
I was trying.
I know. I'm glad that worked, and thanks for texting me. Okay, we'll now move to agenda item number 4, approval of the minutes for the December 8th, 2022 meeting. Did anyone have any changes or amendments that they asked Ms. Brewer to make? Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion to accept these minutes?
Sure, I'll make the motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
Well, great. Let's go ahead and vote.
Commissioner Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Martos?
Aye.
Commissioner Ng?
Aye.
Vice Chair Rebelos?
Aye.
Chair Israelit?
Aye. Okay, minutes are approved, and we'll move on now to public comments. Mr. Wong, I've forgotten, do we need to say anything special, it being a Zoom meeting, as far as the Brown Act or anything?
Sure, there's the little bit that you can read from the agenda, but for everyone else that's attending tonight's meeting is Zoom webinar format. If you wish to contact, send in some public comment regarding any of our items, you may do so using either the chat feature and just let us know, and then we will unmute you, as well as you may send an email to public comment, all one word, no spaces or dashes, public comment at burlingame.org. And then once we get that for the appropriate item, we will read roughly 3 minutes worth to folks, to you, the commission, and everyone else. And then that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, and I will read the normal Brown Act thing, that members of the public may speak on any item that's not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future commission agenda may do so during this public comment period. The Ralph Brown Act prohibits the commission from acting on any matter that is not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. And we ask, if you do speak, then that we aren't going to also read an email, but you get one chance to speak to the commission, and the commission chair may adjust the time limit in light of the number of anticipated speakers if needed. All right, let's move then to public comments, non-agenda items. Are there any members of the public with their hands raised, Ms. Brewer?
There are none, but I do have an email from Manito Velasco to read for general public comment.
Okay, do we have a timer that we use now? I understand for the 3 minutes.
I don't think this email is going to be 3 minutes. It's
great.
a shorter
Okay.
one. So I'll get started. It says, good evening, commissioners, and happy new year. I was hoping to finally hear about the status of the Oak Grove and Carolyn traffic signal. If you recall, this was intended to improve safety at that critical BHS intersection. My understanding is that the signals have been fully designed by the consultant hired by the city, but unfortunately, this is a project that has gone dark, with no updates to TSPC or the website. When will this fully designed project go to construction? Speaking of quiet projects, glad and excited to hear that the California Drive Bikeway project is proceeding to advertising. The last time anyone from the public has seen the plans are from August, September 2021, when it was a TSPC and council agenda item. Much input was given, but it sounds like the plan has since been fully vetted through TSPC and council, including all the new traffic regulations like no U-turn or no turn on red at multiple intersections and new lane merges near Broadway and near Oak Grove. Thanks for fully approving the endorsing the plans. And that's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your comments via email, Mr. Lasko, and that is it for public comments tonight.
That's all I see.
Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 6, discussion action items. 6A is the Teaspoon Subcommittee review. And, you know, I've been reminded that the way that subcommittees work is that they are ad hoc subcommittees that are created for a defined, specific, or limited period of time, or for specific quantifiable results. And otherwise, they become more of something like a standing committee, which is under the Brown Act, under different regulations and requirements in order to comply with that with the Brown Act. We can actually ask our city attorney to sort of go over that so that we understand the difference. But tonight, what I thought we'd do is look at all of the existing ad hoc subcommittees that we have to see which should be disbanded, which have maybe come, completed their purpose when they were set out, or which don't have a specific project that's active at this point. We can discuss those, go through them one by one. Attorney Spansel, do you want to comment on like the requirements if something is not an ad hoc committee, the things that are required in order to keep that committee as a standing committee?
Sure, I'm happy to do that, and I can answer any questions too before you go out to the public for public comment as well. I think you did a great job kind of differentiating those two. We need to take a look. Typically, an ad hoc committee is one that, as you mentioned, is there for a defined purpose or a defined goal or a certain amount of time. And because of that, it doesn't fully fall under the Brown Act in terms of having to have an agenda, having to be noticed, having to allow members of the public to attend it. So those committees can typically be done a little bit easier, and they're a little bit more flexible for the people who are a part of that subcommittee. However, when there is a undefined subcommittee, if it has a general area of expertise, but it can go on for a while and there's no defined project or no defined objective that it's trying to reach, those pretty much have to be handled the same way that the Teaspoon meets. You'd have to have a defined place, you'd have to have a defined time with an agenda, and members of the public would have to know exactly where it was. They would have to know the schedule, and they'd have to be able to come in and listen and comment. So as you mentioned earlier today, I think part of the goal here today is just to really talk about those subcommittees as they exist now, make sure we all understand the goals that they have and what we're trying to reach or what objective we're trying to get to. And then we can come back at a future meeting and the Teaspoon can take a look and maybe figure out which, adopt what those objectives are to make sure that when you look at it in the future and when the public looks at it, they know why that subcommittee is meeting. But I'm here to answer any questions if you have them, but thank you very much for letting me give that little spiel.
Well, thank you for explaining it so clearly. Let me pause first. As a matter of protocol, am I to take public comment prior to the discussion action items? I don't see it in the agenda. I only seen it before the information items.
I'd recommend that for an action item, for a discussion item, we do open the public comment for each of those. And then if there's no one in the public who would like to comment, you can close it pretty quickly.
All righty. All right. Are there any public comments on this subcommittee review?
I don't see any hands raised, and we don't have any additional emails.
Great. Okay, seeing none. Let's go ahead. Ken, is it possible to pull up the existing?
Through the chair, I'll go ahead if it's all right.
Yes, thank you.
believe that's what you're looking for. We currently have these 5 committees.
Excellent. Okay. So why don't we just start from the top and work our way down? Let's start with the Burlingame Avenue Safety and Access Subcommittee. I think maybe what we'll do is actually have if the members of that subcommittee could briefly just state whether you think that the committee has accomplished its goals when it was first set out, or what those specific goals are. Then we can also let other commissioners comment after after Commissioner Lee and Commissioner Eng have spoken. And if you could just kind of keep it concise and just, let us know. Why don't you go first, Commissioner Lee?
I'll defer to my associate, Commissioner Eng, please.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Eng, would you like to sort of let us know a little bit about the specific goals for this subcommittee?
Well, to be completely frank, I think that's where I've kind of struggled with kind of the general scope here. So I would say, contrary to say something like you and I worked on the BIS safety audit, where there's a specific project, there's a plan, there's people involved, there's a step-by-step function that we're kind of going through. This seems a little bit more general in nature. And it's more, as traffic and incidences have arisen, it's more kind of brainstorming about what other ways we can do to mitigate, issues in the area. And, I think it's somewhat challenging because the areas, it's kind of vaguely defined, but not really definitively, 1. And 2, I don't really know when it kind of starts and stops. And so if you recall, this committee, I think, was originally partnered between former chair Martos as well as Commissioner Lee, and I kind of jumped on midstream. So I don't know if there was an originally stated goal that I just didn't quite come to grounds with.
Thank you. Okay, that's kind of helpful. Thank you for explaining that. Do any of the other commissioners want to make a comment as part of the discussion of this? Yes, Commissioner Lee.
Thank you very much. First, I wasn't very clear on what our legal counsel was saying about these committees. And I would like that more clearly defined. What is ad hoc? What is a different kind of committee? Before I go further, it isn't clear to me. It seems like we're just trying to chop committees. So I am not understanding why we're doing this and what kind of committee we're like. What I didn't understand the definition. If we could narrow that down to a couple of bullet points from the legal advice. Thank you.
I think
Sure, I'll do my best if you'd like, Chair.
Yes, and also Attorney Spansel, like it might be helpful also to give like an example, like the BIS subcommittee or like the Hoover School, because that was before Commissioner Lee and Commissioner Eng's time. So, but please go ahead.
Sure, and I definitely wanted to dissuade anybody from thinking we're just trying to chop subcommittees. That is not what we're trying to do. But there are, I'll do my best to try to narrow it down. An ad hoc subcommittee is created just to solve an identifiable goal. So if there is, and Chair Israelit and Mr. Wong, if you want to jump in on prior subcommittees, I don't know all of them in the teaspoon that have existed. But for example, for the City Council, they might want to investigate what sort of issue is happening at a specific element of the city. And then it's hard to define, but perhaps they want to look at the safety of the traffic circle, 5 years ago and determine whether there's certain impacts that are done. And they send those subcommittee members out to report back to the rest of the commission and say exactly what their recommendations are on the traffic circle. And then the rest of the commission can make the recommendation to the City Council. But then there's also a standing committee, and a standing committee is a lot different because it has certain Brown Act requirements that we do need to meet. So the Burlingame Avenue Safety and Access, if it was going to continue on in perpetuity forever, that would have to be a meeting that is a Brown Act meeting, meaning that we'd have to notice it. There would have to be an agenda. The subcommittee members would have to meet at a certain place and time. For example, they can meet at City Hall every Wednesday, every first Wednesday of the month for an hour. But members of the public would know they'd have a defined place where they could go, and they would know that they had to be there. So it's a much more formal subcommittee because it is something that's going to live on forever, or for at least a long time. So I think part of the goal here today was to look at some of these, and for example, the Burlingame Avenue Safety and Access. If there's a smaller goal that could be reached for that, and again, subcommittees can come into existence and then they can cease to exist and be replaced by a new subcommittee that also goes for a smaller defined goal, and you can piece those together. So it's not as though we're trying to say Burlingame Avenue Safety and Access isn't important if we don't choose to make it a standing committee. It's, do we look at a certain element of Burlingame Avenue safety or Burlingame Avenue access, and are we trying to reach that goal? And once we reach it, a new subcommittee could be made for another defined purpose. So I don't know if that was a lot of me talking, and that's never good when the attorney's talking for a long time, Commissioner Lee. So if there's anything else I can answer, let me know, but hopefully that clarifies it a little more. There's a lot more Brown Act requirements if we're not doing an ad hoc defined goal subcommittee.
Okay, thank you very much. That did help. And I took notes on that. So if we need to clearly define our goal, if I recall, Mr. Wong had presented Burlingame Avenue pedestrian crosswalk changes on the avenue last spring. And we still haven't had that happen. And so I think the stretch of Burlingame Avenue would be great if we could continue to study that and hopefully work with staff on those changes to the crosswalks that still have not been implemented. And then I have worked with Parks and Rec on crossing and the access to the new, what's that called? The patio area in front of the Burlingame Avenue train station. So it'd be nice if you want to narrow down to Burlingame Avenue all the way up to the train station to work with staff and observe the pedestrian crosswalks and the changes that we would like to see that were proposed. That'd be fine.
Thank you. So, we don't have to, this evening, we don't, you're not on the spot to come up with something tonight. So I think, if during our next meeting, when this is an agendized item, you want to move that we have a subcommittee that looks at safer crosswalks for a certain stretch of Burlingame Ave, that might be a possibility. But I think as it stands tonight, unless somebody's willing to wants to make this a standing committee and follow all the roles and regulations for having that, it sounds like this one may be too broad and may not be time limited enough to justify being an ad hoc committee. But you don't have, you can think about it. We're going to discuss this at our next meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps Mr. Wong could tell us when the city is planning on doing some of those changes that we discussed in the spring, and
well,
perhaps that would be the timeline.
Okay, and we can do that next meeting because that's not, the on the agenda this evening. But we can, when it is agendized next time, we could delve into that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we don't have to make any motion or anything about letting a committee go or not tonight. We're just discussing and starting to think about it. Vice Chair Revelos, I see your hand is up. Would you like to speak?
Sure, I just wanted to comment that obviously I'm not on that subcommittee, but I have spoken with some of the merchants along Broadway. And I think we've received in public comment, or certainly through email communications, concern from the merchants along that corridor about pedestrian, bicycle, and scooter safety. So I just wanted to make that point. That's all I have to say about that. I mean, there's definitely been some issues along that corridor that we need to, in my opinion, we need to be mindful of and maybe try to alleviate the situation along that road. And then anecdotally, I mean, my own experience crossing back and forth across Broadway, especially in the evening, is a little harrowing at times.
Okay, thank you. But this one was the Burlingame Ave as opposed to Broadway. But yeah, I'm not.
I keep mixing those two up. I totally apologize for that.
No problem.
I've been doing that for 2 years almost
Okay,
now. So
no problem.
my
No
mistake.
problem. Okay, so again, as we said, this is not, to place a value on the safety of Burlingame Avenue, but merely we need to have specific granular issues that we would be working on in order to be compliant with the Brown Act. Are there any other commissioners? I can't see you all because of the sharing screen, but any other commissioners that want to comment on this subcommittee at this time before we move on to the next? Let me see. Okay, I see no hands up, so I'm going to move on. Okay, second committee is the BIS safety audit. I'm on that committee with the lovely Commissioner Eng, and we are still actively working on an actual plan with the city engineer, Michael Tsai, which is going to be presented to the school. There is an endpoint, which would be, we hope to get approval of this through the school, bring it back to you guys as a commission, and then hopefully implement it before the end of the school year. We don't see that this would be a subcommittee that would need to exist after that unless we run into issues and have to reintroduce, make some changes. But so that is a limited project with a goal and timeline. Commissioner Eng, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I was just going to say, I think it's very clearly defined. I think there is a goal, an idea in place, and once we get to that point, then the committee can expire, and then it can be, revisited if need be.
Exactly, perfect. Any other commissioner want to comment on this subcommittee? Okay, I don't see any hands. Let's move to the Mercy School traffic calming. Commissioner Martos, would you like to brief us on this one?
Sure. So I think that we have done our due diligence. We were asked to study the traffic and safety issues in the Mercy School area. We did, and had several meetings with the community, with the school officials, with our traffic engineers, and our commission has seen the recommendations. As far as studying any further, I don't think there is anything more required from us unless there is a request from our traffic engineer to study further the traffic calming mitigations that we put in place. I think at this time, the traffic department is going to install some things, and then we'll measure and assess the effectiveness of those traffic mitigation and safety things that we're improving, lack of a better word. So it's my opinion that this committee could probably end and be disbanded.
Thank you. Mr. Wong, was there anything that you were still needing from us? I know you are still working with Mercy, so maybe you feel like we might have input needed. Do you feel that you need us to remain as a subcommittee for another 1 to 2 months, or do you, what do you think?
Through the chair, as our attorney Spansel said, we can reconvene if need be, but if you request, this is potentially, we can give you an update of what's happened like in the future. Once some of these things get implemented, we can at least describe that to you, drive by, these have been in. So it's your call, but as far as our need feedback from you folks, we definitely have direction.
Okay, great. Okay, so maybe that has run its course and achieved its goal. There's also the BPAC Advisory Committee. We're going to not discuss that one tonight because we still have some facets of that we are looking at. So let's skip over that one this evening. And then lastly, the Highway 101 Corridor Connectivity Subcommittee. Commissioner Lee, do you want to talk about that one?
I'd like to go back to the BPAC. So that I'm not out of the loop when we get next month's agenda, what kind of things are we looking at pertaining to Bike Ped Advisory Committee and having 2 commissioners on it? What's going on with that, please?
I don't know exactly. I think the city is just looking at the legality and roles of how things work. So it's like above my pay grade. So I can't really, I'm not withholding information. I literally just don't have that information. So once we know more, you're definitely not out of the loop. None of us are in the loop, but I'm sure it'll be a discussion item when we talk about it, all the committees next month. I just don't have the information for you. I'm sorry.
Okay, so as long as it's a discussion item and not an action item, because I don't want to be all of a sudden surprised by it next month.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, thank you.
Okay, do you want to comment on the Highway 101?
I think Chair Commissioner Rebelos was going to. Thank you.
Okay, oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand up. Sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Rebelos. Let's hear from you.
No worries, and I have the right committee this time.
And the right street.
Oh my God. So I think the thing with the 101 committee, it is somewhat situational. I'm looking at my notes. We definitely based it on the the perceived issues, which are somewhat gray. I think the primary goal is to identify and maximize pedestrian and bicycle access between Rollins Road and the Bay, between Millbrae, the border with Millbrae and the border with San Mateo. So, that's probably the clearest definition of it. That's definitely, in my opinion, would fall into a somewhat ongoing project as far as there's nothing currently on the table from city staff or from the city council in terms of what the objective is, what the goal is. But at the same time, I do think we have identified some potential projects that could improve pedestrian and bicycle access between Rollins and the Bayshore, some of which might have been thought of, some may have not been thought of before. But I think what I would probably, if we're unable to continue the committee beyond the next meeting, the next TSPC meeting next month, I probably would like the opportunity to present what the concepts that we have come up with to this point, and if she has any thoughts to contribute, absolutely. I mean, she may or may not agree with me, but those are my thoughts. Oh, you're on mute, Chair.
I am sorry. I see Attorney Spansel's hand.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I, spoke up on the legal end, and Vice Chair Rebelos, thank you very much for explaining that. And I think it's definitely a lot clearer to me now, kind of what is happening in that. And I want to make sure, obviously we're talking about all these today. I don't think anyone's saying something needs to end without, you know, a meeting or a recommendation or anything like that. If there are defined goals that are out there and you feel that there are ideas that have found from this subcommittee that you want to present, I think that's exactly what it's done for. So part of what we can do is it's not necessarily saying that because it's not a defined scope, it needs to disband. It can be a defined time as well. So if you feel that there's an amount of time, and I'll leave this to the chair to discuss with the group, but there's a defined amount of time that you think you can come to the group with a recommendation, then that's also beneficial too. And the other option would be, of course, to if you're looking at Highway 101 corridor connectivity, but as you mentioned earlier, Vice Chair Revelos, you might want to look at certain aspects of that. You want to look at bikes crossing Rollins to X. That could be a subcommittee of its own that comes back with a recommendation, and then would disband once that recommendation's made and any sort of action or recommendation to the city council's made too. So just because there might not be a longer, wider scoped subcommittee doesn't mean that those issues that you're talking about, which are very important, wouldn't be looked at. They'd just be looked at in a narrow, defined scope, and then would expire and probably move on to another narrow, defined scope in a different subcommittee. So sorry, I am talking way too much tonight, Chair Israelit, but I will turn it back over to you. I just wanted to make sure people understood this isn't supposed to be, we are ending everything. We're just trying to make sure that we understand exactly what we're doing at each subcommittee. So, you know, we can look at that scope and we can define it and hopefully get some great recommendations from all of your knowledge.
Thank you. Mr. Wong, I see your hands up.
Off me. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd just like to chime in back again, something we discussed earlier. And I think out of this commission, Chair Martos is probably the only one on the commission at the time. When we did Hoover School, it was a rough scope, but we were given direction by council to work with the district, so that there was a little bit there where we had a little bit more, I guess, gravitas. We were able to implement things. They'd given us some direction and a budget of some sort. So ours was to look at the pedestrian improvements. It didn't say just look at crosswalks, look at different things, and then come back to it. I mean, for that effort, staff generated a report. We worked with the district. We were able to install many of those at the first cut, you know, stop signs, high visibility crosswalks. And then but there were also a couple of other defined things that we weren't able to do at the time, which consequently over time we were able to get grants for after the subcommittee had ended. So we were able to report back saying we saw some of those items that we talked about and we were able to move it forward, and we've kind of continued even without the subcommittee because that's what was laid out. So just because we don't have it ends, and we don't necessarily need to have something constructed, but it's like, what is the defined part? That helps. I mean, again, we're not looking at something that the end goal, the ultimate goal is maybe we can build something, but the end goal of the subcommittee shouldn't be until it's built. If that answers it.
Thank you. So we can, our subcommittees can study and make recommendations, but don't have to live indefinitely until everything has been built and implemented.
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay. Any other, I haven't heard from Commissioner Eng or Martos. Did you guys want to comment on this at all? Commissioner Eng?
I just to make sure it's true and I'm transparent. I agree with most of the comments on each of these committees, and I think at the end of the day, if it seems a little broad, but we can narrow it and have a little more focused scope, there's no need to to go away from it by any means. So I think it should be a good discussion when it's on the agenda next month.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Martos, any comments?
No, I'm good. I'm in agreement.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, that was very educational. I think it sets the groundwork or the framework for our discussion at next meeting. And it gives us some time to think about, like if we do have this a committee that seems like it might unfortunately be more compliant with a standing committee and all the rules that entails, it might give us some time to start thinking about a smaller project within that important topic that could justify maybe an ad hoc committee, but we will discuss that next week. Just also as a heads up, the way that subcommittees are formed in the Teaspoon is by someone would move that we have an ad hoc committee called this that works on XYZ. That would need to be seconded, and then we would vote as a commission on those. Okay, let's close this discussion item and move to the meat of the meeting. 6B is the 2023 Teaspoon priority list. I think that everyone's hopefully received the email that we sent out also last year, just discussing the process for how we have done this in the past. It's worked really well. Oh, I see all kinds of hands going up. Sorry, I did something wrong, clearly.
No, you absolutely didn't. I just wanted to thank everyone. I came to provide input and legal guidance on that first item there. So I'll be leaving you all to do some great discussion and all the great work you do for the city. So thank you so much. As you all know, you can contact me anytime, but thank you and have a great meeting.
Thank you so much. Mr. Wong, you had your hand up?
It was just merely to indicate that our attorney Spanson had his hand up, so.
You know, I find it hard to believe that he didn't want to stick around for this, for the priority settings. Anyway, well, it was super, super nice of him to join us and to help, because it's, you know, it's relatively new to us, and we need the assistance from him. So, so let's talk about the priority list. Basically, you can see you've all received on the agenda our priority list from last year. So I think that the most efficient way to move through this would be to go through our priority list that we had last year and remove or strike out anything that's already been accomplished that no longer, you know, needs to remain on this list. Once we've gone through that, and I think what we'll do is let each commissioner speak, or for the striking out part, even if there aren't that many that want to raise their hands, we could raise our hands. After that, we will repopulate our list with priorities that may be new and can be suggested by each of us. We will go in turn until we get, you know, a nice, decent sized list. And then at that point, we will start ranking them in order of priority. And are there any questions about the Novorosky method that we used last year? Does everyone feel comfortable using it again this year? Anyone need any more explanation? Great. Okay. Mr. Wong, do you want to share your screen and bring up the old priority list first? Thank you. Okay, so we're going to focus on the pink part, the Teaspoon part this evening, at least first. Okay, is there, looking at this list, let's just go through them one by one. Broadway, Carmelita, Bike Ped, Teaspoon Study. Is that the, Mr. Wong, is that the project that you're doing the wayfinding for at this time?
The chair, I believe that was the having Carmelita on there, the bike boulevards potentially.
Oh yeah, okay. Okay.
And I could better rename. I'm going to rename that one to be Bike Boulevards, if that's okay with the commission, just because that's, I think, what we've studied it as.
But there are a lot of different bike boulevards, like Davis, Davis, and I don't want it to be too confusing.
So I guess the question is, I mean, this one looks like maybe it was more broad. Is there, you can talk about it if you want to hone down that scope, whether you want to make it specific to the bike boulevards or specifically these streets. I mean,
well, let's start by like either eliminating this. What I'm trying to do is either eliminate it or keep it. And I'm sorry, but I'm actually having trouble remembering what it was, is the problem. Does anyone, Chair Revelos, do you remember what this one was? I see your hand up. Oh, you're on mute?
Yeah, I actually have a question. I don't understand the context of these lists. Is this the list from the January 2022 meeting? Or
Yes.
is this a compilation of the top 5 that we each mailed in?
Oh, no, that is a completely separate entity. This is the list of the items in January 2022 that we generated and ranked in order of what we wanted to accomplish for the year. So this has nothing to do with the 5 things that we sent to Mr. Wong that are things that we want the engineering staff to give us follow-up and progress reports on through the year. Sorry for the confusion. Okay, so Broadway Carmelita Bike Ped Study, if we don't remember what it is, I think I move that we remove that one from the list. I don't know what, it doesn't seem very meaningful if no one really remembers what it is.
Chair,
Yes.
if I may.
Yes.
Hi, so Broadway Carmelita, they're kind of wedded to each other in a way. Because if you're trying to cross Carmelita, you have to cross Broadway, like if you're going north-south. And so Broadway Carmelita both need ways to access north-south, crossing them for both pedestrians and bikes. So I think that's why they were kind of joined at the hip here on our list, because we still have trouble with people crossing, let's say, at Laguna and Broadway, where we've had numerous pedestrians hit this past year. And then as far as the biking, like if you can help peds to cross, it'll help bikes to cross. But as far as biking, the Carmelita Bike Boulevard, I think all we have right now are sharrows, but they're not there. So I don't think we have actually a clear design for Carmelita yet.
Oh,
So maybe, I think it's Broadway Carmelita, it's ped crossing north-south, but then bike is also Carmelita Boulevard, Bike Boulevard. So I think that's what it is. And I don't think it's at all completed or finished.
thank you. Mr.
Thank
Wong, I think I am remembering that. That was because we were making Carmelita the bike boulevard, and we talked about whether we're going to have parking or not parking. We were working with BPAC. Now it's my understanding that you've already accepted our recommendations, and that has moved on to City Council. Am I correct?
Through Chair, that has already gone to Council, and what we're doing is working on the final design based on the feedback we received from this commission as well as Council.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so then I think that we should eliminate this one. We can always add another specific topic, but this one was a specific study that we did and made our decisions on, presented it to the City Council, and it's sort of passed along the way and is no longer really in our venue. Commissioner Martos?
Yeah, so I'm reading the instructions that Mr. Wong sent, and it says assume a blank slate. So instead of eliminating things, can we just move them into a placeholder column?
Yes.
And start with a blank slate instead of discussing each one of these. Let's just move them over, and if we want to bring them back to the active column, we can discuss them at that time. Is that fair?
I think that's great. And we talked about that right before the meeting. Actually, Commissioner Martos, I was trying to remember how we had done it in the past. And you would think after this many years, I would have recalled, but I guess when you're not driving, sometimes you're the passenger. So I think that's a great idea. We can drop these down. Let's start with a blank slate. If you see something in this list that you want to use your turn to add that, repopulate it into our priority list, then you may. So let's move through with the anti-seniority rotation, youngest, newest commissioner first. And you may either select something from the list as it exists, or you may suggest something new for the priority list. And we will try to get to about 10 items. And then we'll start ranking them. So Commissioner Eng, is there anything in this list that you would like to include in our priority list for 2023, or is there a new suggestion that you would like to add?
So
So I'll-
Chair, point of order, can I interrupt? With a
Yes.
Point of order. Mr. Wong, could you move that list to the right? It's a little easier to see if it's to the right of the green column or wherever you want to put it.
All
But
right.
yeah,
This is the bottom one,
extended below, we can't see the entire list.
Thank you. It's good that somebody's good at Excel.
So actually, I had a question first,
Sure. go ahead.
Chair. So, I mean, as far as keeping it as an agenda item, or, you know, as a priority item for the next year, I mean, things like BIS school safety, it's already kind of in flight. It's not complete yet, but so does that require to be back on the list, or is that something that doesn't need to be on the list? I guess that's the clarification I'm looking for.
That's a very good question. My response would probably be to keep it on the list, because although we have an ad hoc subcommittee that's looking at it, it's a big project that has not been brought to completion, and still requires meetings and attention. So I think it should remain on the priority list for that reason, kind of thing, as opposed to checked off and done.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess I'll approach it as, unless it's fully finalized, anything is still in play to add to the list. So I guess, Mr. Wong, why don't we add the BIS school safety improvements on the list? Thank you.
Through Chair, where would you, what rank would you give it?
Why don't you go ahead and,
This is the first cut.
yeah, this is just a first pass, but you know, like if you don't think it's that important, go ahead and put it at 10. If you think it's really important, go ahead and put it at 1.
Let's put it at 1. I can't say that I work on unimportant things, right? I mean, so that just
I
can't
hear
have
you. Oh, thank you. Commissioner Lee, would you like to select something or add something?
I believe I'm not next. I think Vice Chair Rebelos is next.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got you guys mixed up. Vice Chair Rebelos.
So we're supposed to be starting from a blank slate. So that means items that aren't necessarily on this list, right?
You may add
Correct.
something new, or you may, yeah.
So I need to run to the other room and grab the bike ped master plan so I can look at that list.
Well,
Because I can't off the top of my head remember everything that's on that list.
so the bike ped master plan, this is not necessary. This is a little bit more of a global look at our role for 2023 as opposed to like specific things. So, you know, it wouldn't necessarily be, oh, this intersection or this bike path. If that makes sense, but you're welcome to get the.
Well, I mean, so for example, and I'll just make up a street name so I don't throw anything out there that I'm not actually thinking about. But, you know, let's say, you know, First Street between A and C streets. And I think that corridor needs some work, some attention. I could just list that. Or does it have to be something that's actually already in our purview?
That is a good question. I think that what I'd like to avoid is picking specific tasks from the bike ped master plan as as priority items for this. And not to have it be that granular. If that makes sense. So if you think, the intersection of Broadway and California still needs work, you can certainly put that on, and you don't have to define, crosswalk or whatever, stoplight. And let me just also take this opportunity to just say, the Bike Ped Master Plan was something that was asked for, and I can't think of the word, but the city council asked for that as a sort of a master plan for bikes and pedestrians. And that's a document that's quite extensive to work from when making planning for budgeting, planning for capital improvement projects and such. But it is not a task list or even a to-do list for the Teaspoon Commission. If city council decides that they want to work on a specific project in that, they may come to us and ask us for input and advice, and that would be our role. But I just want to be clear that this isn't supposed to be, we have to do all these things that are in the Bike Ped Master Plan, and therefore that should be on our priority list. Those things would come to us when advised by the city council. They're the ones who are in charge of like budget and what, priorities and things when it comes to the Bike Ped Master Plan. We would help with that and advise, but we wouldn't necessarily tell the city council which points of the Bike Ped Master Plan they need to work on first.
Through the chair.
Yes.
And obviously we're both, so a lot of those projects in Bike Ped Master Plan are either funded by council right now, or we've got grant funding, but there is quite a bit that's on there that's not. But again, even though the commission's not responsible for our budgeting of those projects or direction, the opportunity to speak up on those is at the goal setting, the council zone, when they start setting their projects, their CIP discussions, which happens in I think a couple months. It's at that time that if there's an interest in, hypothetically, let's just say Old Bay Shore, you want to focus on that because of this, that's where you bring it up. And then in theory, that's where we can look at what we have either in the Bike Ped Master Plan or, or other things that we've been working on, and maybe start funding it. That's the time for this. Obviously you can, we can talk about many of these things, but it's meant to be not so high up, not necessarily 30,000 feet that it's so broad, but obviously you look at some of these and a lot of them are, I'll say, defined, right? You can kind of draw a circle around BIS, Carmelita, the parking garage, downtown parking access. We just have to differentiate between downtown and then Broadway. No offense, Commissioner Rebelos, but yeah, we all have problems defining which is the true downtown, and you get a lot of argument, but just things like that. This is somewhere in between. We should need to put a curb ramp here isn't the goal, but maybe we should need to look at pedestrian access. And again, this is the commission's kind of active list of looking at things. It's kind of a Venn diagram. Like, as you can see, a bunch of these we're addressing either with a grant, with staff's own work program. So they do cross, but if you're being on the Teaspoon's active list, we can assist you with it by providing you, you want to maybe take a look at what the guidelines are for a parking stall. We can provide you with some of that information, but staff may not be actively working on some of these with you, but many of these we already are. Obviously, parking, we're always kind of touching that. The pedestrian, the Broadway Carmelita, we've looked at BIS. Those are things we're working on. So that's where our list and our work plan and this list overlap, if that makes sense. So we can, if it's something that's not working on, we can try to provide some assistance, but we may not, we're not going to drop everything and then work on something. That's not the goal of this list, but it's just, hopefully there's a lot of overlap. I think that's what we've pushed for before. or there's opportunities. I think on here, this list previously has been EV chargers. While that's not Public Works working on, we've had Miss Segal, our sustainability coordinator, the opportunity to come and talk about that. Or earlier this year, we did have talking about the scooters, which again isn't in Public Works purview, but it was at one point it was a priority, and so it was an opportunity for us to discuss. So does that make it more confusing, or does that kind of give you a little bit of like where you're aiming?
Where I'm getting lost here is I'm afraid of what's going to happen here is we're just going to rearrange this list of 10 items. I mean, I don't have a list to work from other than working from the 10 items, and then we're supposed to say that we're figuratively working with a blank slate. But where are we pulling our potential projects or potential priorities from?
Again, oh, go ahead, Chair. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. In the past, Vice Chair Rebelus, it could be something that we've discussed as a group, it may just be that this year there are very few things that are going to be on our list. Maybe it will be a list of 6. If there isn't a burning issue that you're aware of that, needs to be addressed, or if, you could, it's hard for me to, I'm having trouble sort of explaining, but.
Well, that's kind of, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
That's kind of my point. I mean, it's like, I feel like I'm supposed to come up with I don't know how to say it. I don't have a list to work from. And for me to just come up at the last minute with what my priority is, and the only thing that's in front of me is the 10 items from last year, it's really, I just don't have that kind of imagination that I can react that quickly for something that is supposed to be in place for the remainder of the year, for the next 11 months of the year, right? If you were asking me, well, what's my opinion? I can give you my opinion, but this is something that's going to go on public record as our top 10 priorities or top 5 or whatever they may be. And I need to give it more thought than just to have, and it's really difficult when the list in front of me is very suggestive, right? Because I don't have anything to compare it to.
Got it. Well, Mr. Wong, would you, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, maybe just a way of helping, just because I have past history on how these lists have been propagated. Sometimes it's come from discussions with council members, what they thought might be important. That could be something, community members, things that, the community has brought to you, or you've come, not necessarily, you in discussions with community members, and there's an interest, maybe you can throw it up there. And again, it's not, you're putting it up there, but the commission is ultimately weighing and see how that is based on theirs. So, you put something up there, it may fall high on the list. Everyone's like, that's something I've heard about as well. And it rides to the top, or it maybe doesn't, again, it depends on the 5 of you on how you want to do this list, but that's in the history, we've had folks bring up things. They had to sit down with the council member or a community member, and they had an interest in this, and they thought, and it was put up here. That's why it's just not, pick your one and then that's your one shot. We're trying to fill 10 spots, and it's going to move, right? And that's how it's happened. Does that help?
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Commissioner Martos, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, so this is confusing. I agree with you, Vice Chair, because, as I read through the commissioner's manual, the policies and rules that we're supposed to follow, the procedures and rules. No offense, Mr. Wong, but it says city staff is responsible for setting the agenda items. But we always have a agenda item at the end of our agendas that says future agenda items. which is an opportunity for us as commission members, as was stated, maybe you know something that either a council member spoke with you about, or people in your community have spoken with you about, that we want to bring to the attention of the city staff so that we can get it on the agenda. We don't set their priorities. That's not in our purview. That's a budget and a priority thing from their department. But to bring to their attention things that we think should be considered and set in that priority queue for future agenda items, I think is where this list adds value. So we may not get to all these things because Mr. Wong may have a whole 12 months full of projects that he and the director and his team are working on that we need to consider and take public input on and add our feedback on so that they can go to council and get it approved to move forward for implementation by council. But in lieu of those, or in maybe place of some of those, because we have things on this list that do have a lot of value, that's where this list becomes important and valuable, I think. Is that helpful? Vice or chair or vice chair?
Thank you.
Does
Yeah,
that make any sense?
I think that's helpful. I think you both have explained it, and I will say it's fine to also take a pass when it's your turn. If you don't have something that you can think of, you can just take a pass. And we're coming around for a second round as well. Vice Chair Revelos, do you want to add something? You've been freezing off and on this evening.
Well, I'm trying not to be critical. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but your video is freezing off and on. So if we don't respond right away, it might be that. Go ahead.
No worries. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I really need to, I need more now. I need to reference my notes and I need to reference some materials. I can't just off the top of my head in good faith say that these are things that are priorities to me. So I need to actually look at my notes. I can pass if you want to go to someone else, and then I can chime in later.
Okay. Okay. That's absolutely fine. All right. So then we'll come back to you. Commissioner Lee, do you have something for the priority list?
Yes, I'd like to add, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'd like to add BHS area safety improvements. That would be from Oak Grove, California Drive, all the way down to Burlingame Avenue on both the Caroline side and the California Drive side. So that 4 blocks area by BHS I'd like to add. So it's California Drive. So it's BHS area safety improvements. So it's California Drive, Caroline, from Oak Grove down to Burlingame Avenue. That's like where the students are all around there. Thank you.
Thanks. And you don't have to define, you don't have to define it. You can just, you don't have to limit yourself at this point. You know what I mean? It can be bigger. So,
That's
okay.
pretty big. Thank you.
Yeah, it is pretty big. All right. Let's see.
Sorry, through the chair.
Yes.
Shirley, I put it at 2, just because that's where it was. Is that where you feel the importance to you, or the importance, I guess, 1 through 10 on a list?
If I may, is it you're asking me, Mr. Wong?
Correct.
Right. I think with our 2 pedestrian deaths this year in that area, I think it ought to be number 1.
Okay.
Thank you.
And through the chair, and maybe it's premature to rank them. Maybe we should just get them up on here first and then rank them. Otherwise, we could, go rounds. Is that all right if we just put them up here? I don't.
Yeah.
So ignore the rank right now. I'm just going to propagate the list.
Okay, okay, and then we'll play
Sorry.
Tetris.
Correct.
Okay, great, all right. I guess I will go next, being the next junior. And you know, I'm looking at some of the things we've really accomplished a lot, which makes me feel kind of good. I would like to add something new. I would like to add the roundabout, the sort of semi-roundabout in front of City Hall that has been talked about in the past, and how to improve safety at that strange intersection. And we'll just leave that. Yeah, we'll just leave that number 3. Commissioner Martos, you're up.
Mr. Wong, can you bring in the green column of items that were just engineering staff reports? Can you put them to the right? Okay. So this is a more of a generic request or a reason why I'm choosing the Lion Hogue neighborhood traffic calming. And the reason that I would like to put that on the list is because that was a big study. There was a subcommittee, there was a committee that participated in that. There were consultants that led that study. They implemented a lot of things, and it's been several years now, 2-3 years, I think, since the implementation. I think what's important there is that we get some feedback from the community on best practices and lessons learned. Things that we did in that neighborhood, that Lion Hogue neighborhood, as best practices should be on our list of best practices, things to do in other locations of the city. And things that didn't work so well would have 2 priorities there. One would be, okay, maybe we can fix it in that neighborhood, but also we could rethink about utilizing that traffic calming mitigation somewhere else in a different way. So I think there's a lot of value in things we can learn from what was done in that area by collecting that feedback. And I've spoken with, and I've seen on Nextdoor, lots of comments about different things. In fact, we had a comment from a community member a while back about the traffic circle that people were doing donuts around, and that wasn't working out real well. But there's other things that I've spoken with people in this Lion Hogue community about that they thought could be improved on. So we should collect that information, I believe, and assemble the best practices, and then those things that maybe we would do a little differently in the future if we were going to employ them for traffic calming and safety. So I'd like to put that on the list.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Martos. Oh, through chair, and that's a great example. So again, the green list is always what staff's kind of actively working on, right? It's somewhere that, you know, you've seen a lot of these El Camino corridor, the Grove traffic signal, Bayshore study, Chapin Avenue. So that's where the traditional or historically the teaspoon list and the staff list is overlapped. It definitely overlaps, right? Some of these others, we will probably can work on some of them because of what they are. We're working on BIS, where it's not necessarily a funded project yet, but it's something that's in our sites, as well as yeah. So again, some of these but some of them may sit as well, but this is one that's active.
Thank you. I'm going to let, we're going back now, right? I'm going to let Commissioner Eng go again, and then Vice Chair Revelos, you will get 2 in a row, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Eng. And it's okay if you don't want to add anything additional, you can pass. Did he drop off?
I believe he did.
He disappeared.
I thought my phone was going dead.
I thought he was on the next screen. Shoot. Well, I'm sure he's going to dial back in. In the meantime, we'll let Vice Chair Rebelos take his, why don't you go ahead and add yours?
Okay.
And we'll wait
He is
for-
back.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Ink, are you back?
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. I thought you were just deep in thought.
No. For some reason, it was frozen on my side, so I was like furiously clicking, which never is really the answer. But anyhow, actually, I was going to pass to the next commissioner. So
Okay.
to Vice Chair Rebelos.
Well, thanks for jumping on so quickly. Vice Chair Rebelos gets two goes now, if you're ready. If you're not, that's okay.
Okay. No, I'll do it. So my first one would be, whoops, wrong screen. My first one would be to sort of expand upon where is it? I saw where'd it go? I thought it was on the list here.
You want the green list?
No, it was the salmon colored one. Oh yeah, pedestrian safety at California and Burlingame Avenue. I would expand that to be pedestrian safety for Burlingame Avenue between California and ECR. And that's obvious. I don't think I have to explain why. And then one that just because I'm there all the time and I see the confusion there and I see the number of pedestrians crossing there and the potential. There's a really wide intersection at Murchison and Magnolia, right on the border with Millbrae. And so that 2 blocks span between Ogden and ECR along Murchison. It goes, if you're going down Murchison from up the hill and past the school, and you approach Ogden and then the block between, it's a 2 block span. It goes from a two lane wide road, 1 lane in either direction, and to a very wide road that is only marked for 2 lanes, but people drive on it as though it's 4 lanes. And I'm not saying that they're wrong in doing that, but it's confusing. And then that intersection in particular, the hub of it, Murchison and Magnolia, it's a really long crosswalk for any direction there. And it's actually quite busy intersection. So I'd like to add that one to the list.
Awesome.
So since no one has done a second round already, what exactly does the second round entail?
Well, I think we're just doing the second round now. And then after that, we'll do ranking.
So what is the second round? Do I add more or do I move things or?
I think those would be the 2 that you add.
Mhm.
So let's see, you just went, so then Commissioner Lee goes, then me, then Martos, and then we'll do the ranking. So everyone gets to add 2, basically. Okay, Commissioner Lee, would you like to go ahead and add anything to the list?
Yes, Chair, thank you. All right, so seems like I'm muted. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to add continuing bike lanes through intersections. So let's pretend you're riding your bike southbound on California Drive, and you want to turn left, which is eastbound on Broadway. And then perhaps you want to make get over to southbound Carolan. And we're getting these new bicycle boulevards and new bike lanes. I don't want the bike lane to end as it goes through the intersection. I would like it to be also defined. So to work on designing intersections that respect the bike lane going through. So if that's an overall city goal, would be to make sure bike lanes and bike access continues even across some of these giant intersections or tricky ones, to cross them. Yeah.
Do you want to
Thank
call
you.
it, do you want to call that like bike lane transitions, just to like the transition through intersection? Does that?
Well,
is that
I
a good-
like the word intersections. We just haven't had any of our intersections designed yet with the bike lanes continuing through them,
Mhm.
or giving the bikes like a lane as, turning left or eastbound onto Broadway and then continuing south, or to get to the overpass, the bicycle ped overpass. So I think that as we go forward into all these, any bike facilities we design, to make sure we work with staff to make sure that the intersections are also respected for bicyclists. It's not that I'm a huge biker, but there are some intersections. It's really scary without those designs. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see, who's next? Commissioner Lee, then me. Am I correct? Yes.
Correct.
Me. I'd like to add, can you go to the green list again real quick, please? I want to add Caltrans ECR corridor to the list. And the reason is that that work is starting this spring, where they're going to be digging up El Camino, taking down trees, planting new trees. It's actually starting very quickly, and there's not going to be a whole lot of time for us to weigh in. I know it's Caltrans, and they don't always allow us to have much say in what goes on, but this is our opportunity to do so. Or otherwise, we're just in the back seat and a passive recipient of whatever that design they impose. So this 2023 year, I don't know if you guys remember, but this is the big year when that's going down. And they say they'll be starting work in the spring. Commissioner Martos. Last one.
Yeah, I'm kind of debating. I have a lot of interest in school safety. I see school safety things on there already, BIS, BHS. We've got Mercy that we've already discussed in committee. I think we've covered a lot of those, and more I'm sure will come up. There's a Hoover concern that Mr. Long was going to work on later this month that I know is coming up as well. I don't know that needs to be a topic for the whole commission at this point, but let's see. But if you go downtown, especially on Thursday, Friday, Saturday in the evenings, it's still very congested with parking. And I don't know if we're getting a lot of utilization of the parking garage, if there's still a issue in the downtown area with parking, if the merchants are still concerned, if the customers are still concerned, if council's still concerned, if they're hearing issues or complaints about parking in the Burlingame Avenue area. But I would like to maybe consider that. And if there are still challenges down there, that we revisit that. Again, there was a committee that I would call it downtown parking and access, or downtown parking strategies, or something like that. I wouldn't take the parking garage. That's kind of a subset. There was a committee that studied that quite a while. That was myself and former Chair Wetton. And we did a lot of work and met with a lot of people, merchants and council members and engineering and lots of people to come up with strategies. And we thought that, dang, this parking garage is going to solve everything. So now my question is, has the parking garage solved everything with our parking issues downtown? And I'm not convinced. So I would like to maybe have some data on that whole area, parking in those areas. And for those people that weren't on the commission way back when, we did parking counts on Friday at noon, and I think Thursday at noon. And it was astonishing how few parking spaces in all of the parking lots combined prior to the parking garage were available. You could count them on one hand. Friday at noon, you count 5, maybe, on one hand, how many available parking spaces were available in all the parking lots combined. It was a real problem, but now we have a parking garage. So maybe that's not a big problem anymore. But I'd like to know, I'd like to have some data on that. And because if it is still a problem, then we can do things like wayfinding. We can do things like revisit the pricing structure in the parking garage, to try and incentivize people. I'll tell you, when we were trying to move people out of the core of the Burlingame Avenue area, the downtown area, we made the parking lot, I forget the parking number, but it's across the street from where the Safeway is, across El Camino. We made that $1 a day, and that thing filled up every day. There's things that we can do if parking is still congested and contested, in the Burlingame Avenue area. So I'd like to get that on the list.
Great.
Through
Long
the chair,
narrative.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah,
Commissioner Martos, were you looking at, there was a couple items we had there. We had the downtown parking strategies.
Yeah, let's just call it that.
Okay.
Yeah.
or you could come up with a new name. Excellent. Okay, so we have our list of 9. And what we'll do now is move through in the same order.
Through the chair,
Yes,
I think you need to go back to Commissioner Ng. He passed on his second one. We only have 10 items or 9 items. We should have 10.
I thought he passed because he wasn't going to add
Oh.
a second one. Commissioner Ng, did you want to add a second one?
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
My apologies.
I would never leave you out. Okay, so now we're going to move, let's move quickly through ranking these. This shouldn't take as much time now that we've given thought to the actual priority list itself. So I'm going to start again with the newest member, Commissioner Ng. You are able to move any one item to any slot. So if you move something up or down in priority, and then it will repopulate with the other items filling in, and Mr. Wong will move those real time so you can see how we go through this.
I think I'd actually move the downtown parking strategies just below the pedestrian safety along Murchison.
Great. Excellent. Vice Chair Rebelos, do you want to move anything?
So we don't need to have 10. We can do with 9.
Yes, we can do it with 9.
Okay. I would move number 3 down to. I would move 3 down below number 8. And the reason is I mean, I walk through that intersection all the time. I don't really see any urgency at that intersection. To me, all these others are a much higher priority in my mind. And I would move,
You only get one move.
oh, only one move? Okay.
One move per turn, per round. We'll just keep going. And you don't need to justify. It's fine. You know, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you move my priority down to something lower.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Okay, Commissioner Lee.
Thank you. I would move bike facilities through intersections up to number 3.
Okay, and that means that now it is my turn. Because of, I just said you don't have to explain, Vice Chair Rebel isn't here, but because of the nature of the size of the project and the timing, I'm going to move Caltrans ECR corridor up to the position number 5. Commissioner Martos?
Yeah, let's see. One moment. So I'd like to move number 8 up to number 6.
Okay. And then that brings us back to Commissioner Ng. And keep in mind, at any point, if you're satisfied with the ranking, you can just say, you know, I'm satisfied.
Yeah, I'll pass. I won't make a change.
Thank you. Vice Chair Rebelos.
Yeah, so based on the feedback I've received from the merchants, the Broadway Merchants Association or Broadway Business Improvement District, I would move number 7 up to number 4.
Through the chair, just a confirmation because we keep jumping between two. Did you mean for this to be the Burlingame Avenue, or were you thinking Broadway? This
That's supposed to be Broadway. Yeah, it's
Okay.
supposed to be Broadway.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Oh.
I had the same question. Thank you.
Oh, okay. It's so funny. I just assumed you meant Burlingame. I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
definitely Broadway.
Okay.
Sorry, and that was a move to number
4.
4. Okay. Thank you.
I remember the name of the business improvement district, but I don't remember the name of the actual road they're on.
Okay, and then Commissioner Martos has his hand raised.
Yeah, I think that changes things tremendously. So I think Commissioner Ng should have an opportunity to weigh in on that as well. If
Okay.
it's Broadway, he may want to place that somewhere else.
Okay. let's go back to Commissioner Eng, since we changed the name of that topic, and give you another chance in case you would like to make a change.
No, actually, now that it's Broadway, I kind of like where it is.
Awesome. Okay, I guess that's me next.
Point of order, I think it's Commissioner Lee.
Correct, through the
Oh
chair.
my gosh, I'm so sorry, Commissioner Lee.
Thank you.
Please go ahead. It's been a long night so far. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Thank you. I would like to swap number 5 with number 8.
Now it's you, Chair. Is
I
your
know. Thank
Well,
you.
no, I had swapped 5 and 8. I didn't just push it down.
Oh, you mean put number 8 where 5 is and 5 where 8 is?
Yeah. 8 was pedestrian safety along Murchison, put that where 5 is.
okay.
And put 5 down in number 8.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
Now to Chair is your
Hmm. I'm actually happy with the way it stands. I'm not going to make anything, I'm not going to move anything. Commissioner Martos.
So I want to move number 8 to number 6.
and then shift everything down just so I don't make that, or is
Yep,
this? swap?
Yep, shift it down.
Okay, that brings us back to Commissioner Ing.
Yeah, I'm good with the order.
Thank you. Vice Chair Rebelos.
I'm good.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee. I will not skip you.
Thank you. And I'm good also. Thank you.
Okay, my turn. I'm good. Commissioner Marshall.
I'm good.
Great. All right. If we had champagne, we could raise a toast, but it's probably Brown Act or something. Anyway, okay, well done, everybody. And I think the nice thing about this list this year is that I can definitely see that we would be able to get to everything, no matter where it is on that priority list. I think it's a very doable goal for us. Okay, so that is our priority list for 2023. Let's close this item and move on to information items number 7. First, let's open for public comment. Ms. Brewer, is there anyone with a raised hand or any emails?
I do not have anything.
Excellent. Okay, we will move to community VPAC update. I don't think we have anyone. Ms. Beatty is not here with us this evening. Not sure they had a meeting during the holidays anyway. But I'm sure they will join us. Oh, Commissioner Lee, were you at the meeting or was there a meeting?
Yes, I was. There was a meeting. Commissioner Reblos and I both attended it. So if I forget anything, please, Vice Chair Reblos, fill in for me. Just
So
quickly,
a point of order,
yes,
Chair. So
Yes.
is this public comment or is this committee reports?
For this meeting, we did not move the BPAC update to public comment at this time. So this is not a subcommittee report, but was to be just an update from the BPAC meeting as a public comment in a way. I don't know if we can have commissioners do that, though. You're right.
Yeah. I don't think that's in order.
Through the
I
chair.
think-
Yes,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
I think maybe if we held this to item 8, where are they fall? Item 8C, where it's the committee's reporting out, since the committee is on there, that should cover it. So since
That's
it should be
great.
something public.
Okay, thank you for pointing out that point of order and for the solution, Mr. Wong. Okay, let's move on then to 7C, engineering division reports. Mr. Wong.
Well, actually, tonight I will again thank you all for providing your lists to me. We will do our best to try to address those. They're not all on there, as you've noticed on there, but we will try to move through that. And for tonight, you get to Mr. Sy will be, and maybe in a future be working on this one, just giving you the updates. So I will turn it over to him.
Thank you, Andy. Good evening, commissioners. I'm going to give Mr. Wong a break from these staff updates tonight and maybe moving forward, depending how it goes. Congratulations on the priority list of 2023. That was very fun to sit through, and I think you have some good items on that list. And so for this part of the meeting, in addition to discussion action items and other informational items, staff also wants to provide updates on other projects of interest whenever it's appropriate, like at major milestones and project junctures. I guess starting with the first item, the BIS traffic calming joint effort with staff and the Teaspoon subcommittee. We've heard a little bit about this tonight, and basically we've made substantial progress towards a circulation plan that we believe does have a good shot at reducing congestion around BIS at morning and PM drop-off pickup. And a draft plan is going to be presented to the school in the coming few weeks. Another item of interest was the Chapin Avenue feasibility study. So Chapin Avenue, it was identified as a priority green street in the San Mateo County Stormwater Resource Plan. And that study was completed. It successfully identified a few concept alternatives, and final design construction is really on hold until further future funding opportunities are secured, hopefully through some different grant opportunities that may come. And I think the last update I have is for the California Drive Bike Facility project. It's advertised for construction bids right now. And we're expecting the bid opening at the end of January. That concludes the updates I have today, and hopefully moving forward at other meetings, we'll be able to include more items of interest.
Through the chair, sorry, Michael, I should have added something. I should have added something else on the BIS, just because this is probably an interest. Oh, never mind, wrong. Too many schools. I'm jumping the gun. That is his. Never mind.
Okay, duly noted. Okay. Thank you very much and for joining us, Mr. Sy, and for giving us that update. and it'll be nice, Mr. Wong didn't get everybody's list of the things that we were interested in having progress reports on right away. So that's why it's not like this complete list, and we'll work through that. I probably have it more fully fleshed out and developed for our next meeting. Great. We can now move to the police. That was a very short engineering report. We can now move to the police department report and welcome Sergeant Jason Roberts, who's gets to work with us for the foreseeable future. You all should have received the report from this month, and I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself, Sergeant Roberts, and take us through this.
Thank you for the kind welcome. Thank you all for having me at your meeting, and I look forward to working with you all in the future. So this is my first meeting, so I'm really not sure exactly what you're all expecting here, but I did provide a traffic collision breakdown for the month of December, and I think it should be close to or pretty much what you've been receiving up to this point, hopefully. I'm happy to report that all of the collisions were all but one involved collisions with other vehicles. There's 18 total accidents that occurred, all involving another motor vehicle. One exception was a fixed object collision. No pedestrian or bicycle collisions in the month of December reported. And it looks like a majority of the collision factors involved some sort of unsafe turning movement or backing or starting upon a highway. That's what I have right now. Not sure what else to expect here.
That's great. It's nice, to give that kind of summary where, if there's like 5 bicycle vehicle collisions, it would be nice, nice to point that out, or, an extraordinary number of DUIs or anything like that. So thank you very much. And then commissioners, we are able to ask clarifying questions or questions requesting more information from this report. This is not, keep in mind that this is an information item, so there should not be a discussion of things that we should do in the future or any, discussion of the items. It's mostly question and informational. Commissioner Martos, I think your hand was up first.
Yep. So welcome, Sergeant Roberts. I am the most senior in age, probably, as well as tenure with this group. And I've seen the last couple of sergeants that were in this role retire, and others that got promoted. You look a little young to retire, so hopefully after this role you'll get promoted. But what we look for in this report is really trends, right? We're trying to find trends, areas where there might be safety issues that we might be able to analyze, make a recommendation to the traffic department on how to improve safety. So, as you organize this data, that's what we're going to be looking for. And if you see trends, if the data is somewhat organized so that those trends are really apparent and jump out at us, that would be really helpful. And also, I've mentioned this to Sergeant Perna, but if your staff is aware of areas that are not safe, intersections that are problematic, feel free to share those with us. Your staff's on riding the mean streets every day, 24 hours a day. And your team may see a lot more than we do. So please feel free to share that information with us as well. But that's what we're looking for. I'm happy to see there's no pedestrian, bicycle accidents. That's really good. That's always gets our attention right away. So But welcome. Happy to have you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lee.
Put my hand down, I guess, huh? Okay. Hi, thank you, and welcome Sergeant Roberts to our committee. When Sergeant Perna left, he was updating the reports into a map, and he would put the map of where the pedestrian and bicycle hits were in the community. I just wanted to double check that you would be also continuing that and reporting on that every month as pedestrian and bike hits come. That was my first. And then my second was I wanted to kind of chime in with what Chair Israel had said about the DUI. I was hoping we could get the list of moving vehicle, what's it called? Like tickets, whatever those are, moving violations. If we could start a list of those and see what the police are actually ticketing. DUI, as Chair Israel had said, or speeding or whatever. Nice to know that we're getting moving violations in our community. Thank you.
Chair or Vice Chair Revelos.
Okay, so hello, welcome to your time with the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission. I think I speak for everyone here when we say that we're thankful for you spending time with us and taking time out of your day and away from your other tasks. And I just want to touch on a couple of things real quick. One of the things that I think we look for here is some sort of a visual presentation so that we can kind of wrap our heads around what exactly is occurring and where. Chair, used to be former Chair Martos, Commissioner Martos did an excellent job of pointing out that we're looking for opportunities to improve safety, and we're looking for trends. More specifically, I think, we're considering the placement of crosswalks, the configuration of intersections, lane markings, traffic signals, stop signs, speed limits, those kind of things. And so, for example, if something is happening at an intersection and it's possible that a reconfiguration of that intersection would improve safety, that's something that we should be aware of. So the visuals really help with that. Something else is that, we may, your tolerance is appreciated because we may ask questions or we may reiterate our thoughts throughout the year from meeting to meeting. And so for us, maybe we have a better understanding, but for the public who are watching these meetings later on, the members of the public, they only watch 1 or 2 meetings a year. If that, they watch the meetings that they feel are relevant to them. And so for them, it might be the first time that they hear or see something. So it requires a little bit of patience here at the commission. But other than that, I'm glad to hear that there are no pedestrian accidents or bicycle accidents this last month. And then, of course, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Okay. Well, Sergeant Roberts, if it's possible, I'd like to talk with you later about maybe a way we could change the format that we have of the spreadsheet for the report to make it a little more readable for those of us with older eyes. I'll try and reach out to you about that. But thank you so much. Thanks for being here. Okay, let's move on to item 7E, a teaspoon chair and commissioners' communications. These would be emails you might have received, conversations where people reached out to you as a commissioner. We're not allowed to comment on these. Again, this is like public comment. You're allowed to share what has been shared with you, but this is not a discussion item. Are there any communications? Commissioner Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I received an email from Margaret Glomstead, head of Parks and Rec, and she was discussing the additional 10 feet of red lighting along the curb in front of the rec center by the mailbox there and the street. My neighbor had, a couple of neighbors had requested 10 more feet of red paint along the curb in front of the rec center, so the children wouldn't have to step out in the street to see around the parked vehicles. So Margaret said she went out with her tape measure, and I sent her a photo of exactly where the 10 more feet of red paint would go. And I'm hoping Mr. Wong could follow up, and I can also follow up with Margaret Glomstead. I don't think 10 feet of paint is too hard to put in front of the rec center. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other, Vice Chair Revelos?
Thank you. So 2 communications. I referenced earlier that I've heard from a couple of merchants along Broadway. I walk there almost every day, maybe 4 or 5 days, but I'm not paying attention to the street name. There's just a big giant neon arc, right? Tells you how my brain works. I'm a doer, I don't pay attention to the words. I just pay attention to getting it done. So yes, a few Burlingame merchants have approached me and expressed their concern about pedestrian safety on Broadway. So that's something I'm going to call attention to. And then for the second time now, a resident on Dunya has asked if there's anything we can do about decreasing the speeding or limiting the speeding, maybe speed humps or some other traffic calming measures on Dufferin. Apparently, people are using that as a cut through to avoid. They come down Truesdale, make a right onto El Camino Real, and then a left on Dufferin to get to California. That way, they don't have to wait at the intersection of Truesdale and El Camino Real. And it's not a scientific data, but it seems to be the case. And then the opposite way, they come up California, they make a left on Dufferin and a right on El Camino to avoid having to go through taking an approach on every avenue that, which is fine, except for the fact that they're doing it at a very brisk pace without any concern for the neighborhood. Those are my 2.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Let's move on now to item 8, committee reports. Are there any public comments related to the committee reports? I think I see 9 participants and I see 9 of us, so I'm thinking no, but in case they're emailed.
No emails. We're good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Let's go ahead and just work through these. Burlingame Avenue Safety and Access, Commissioners Lee and Eng.
Nothing this month. Thank you.
Thank you. And I am missing the next page. Oh, here it is. Community Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory BPAC Committee. This is your chance to sort of fill us in on the what happened at the meeting. Commissioner Lee, do you want to take that?
Yes, I'll start, and if anything Vice Chair Revelos would like to add, that's of course fine. We have a new member who's very active and excited, so that's wonderful. And then BPAC would like to work on celebrating not only the start of the new South bike lane, but also the completion of it. So we're trying to work on plans kind of to celebrate the grand opening of that. And
Oh, sorry, it's my dog.
I think that's it. That's okay.
Thank
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Okay, and let's move on to the next committee, which is BIS Safety Audit. I'm going to let Commissioner Eng fill you in on that since I've been talking all evening.
Sure. I was gonna say, I mean, Mr. Sy already kind of gave the update on it, so I don't think unless there's any other further questions on it, I mean, really kind of where we're in the process. It'll be presented in a format to people related to the school, the stakeholders there, before we bring it back to everybody here. So that's where we're at.
Yes, and I have to say, Michael Sy has been working with us and you know, we're really trying to move it forward. As I said, the goal is to get something in place before the end of the school year so people can start to get used to it and before September or August, whenever school starts nowadays. Great. Next is the Mercy School traffic calming. Commissioner Martos, would you like to comment?
Well, I think I already did. So I think it can be disbanded. I think we're done with that committee. So we'll leave that up to Mr. Wong to see if he needs any more support from the two of us.
Perfect. Okay.
But we haven't done anything for a couple of months, so I think we're pretty much done.
Okay. And lastly, Highway 101 corridor connectivity, Commissioners Lee and Rebelos.
I can speak to that. I was on vacation all of December, so nothing happened.
Nice. Okay. All right. That will close agenda item 8, move on to number 9, future agenda items. Mr. Wong, obviously we'll be talking next, we'll have on the agenda discussing the subcommittees, which ones should continue and any new ones should be added. On the agenda, are there any other agenda items the city staff plans to have on for next meeting?
I'm going to check with my colleagues to see how some of the ongoing grant projects are. So maybe we can get those up. It just depends on where we are on some of, we've started some of the outreach on some of that. So we'll see if there's a little bit more meat or feedback we need from the community. But those are the ideas right now on those. Obviously, there's a bunch. We've got the Murchison Davis, Truesdale discussion. We've got the California Drive. So we've got plenty of irons in the fire, and we'll see what we can bring back.
Great. Okay. Looking forward to that. All right. I think that's it, everyone. I think that winds up our first meeting of the year. Looking forward to seeing you guys next time. And then, as I said, you know, start to think about the subcommittees, thinking about your priorities and what we might need to let go. And have a great rest of your evening.
Right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Aloha.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks,